My name's Gabrielle, and I'm from Boise, Idaho. I am a ceramicist. I've been doing pottery for about 14 years. When I was 15, I was going from junior high to high school, and the pottery teacher came to do a speech about taking his class, and they had mentioned that they do a bonfire every year, and I thought that sounded fun, so that is what got me into pottery to begin with. I immediately fell in love with pottery because it was the first place where I felt like I could express myself completely. I'm really inspired by the natural world around me. I really like doing the human body forms and floral. I'm an avid gardener, so a lot of the inspiration, it kind of ties in with pottery. If I'm working in the garden, I come up with an idea that pushes me back into the ceramic studio and vice versa. So it's this kind of push-pull between the garden and the ceramic studio. So I started this series of faces because when I started doing gardening, I realized that the more diversity I had in the plants in my garden, the better my garden was, the more it thrived. And so I started the series of faces just to kind of highlight that diversity works the same in our communities. The more diversity we have, the better off we are. So behind me, there's this big-bodied woman. This was one of my favorite pieces to work on. It's a coil vessel, so I start off with pretty large cylinders of clay and just add those on top of each other and form the piece the way that I wanted it. And the whole thing took me about a week total, but I was only able to work about 45 minutes a day on it because it would get too tall too quickly and collapse on itself. Most of my face pots are pinch pot vessels, but it is really fun to throw a vessel on the wheel and add a face to it. So I would throw this piece on the wheel and then take it off and work a nose is where I start first. It's almost like as soon as I have a nose on a piece, it hits me like I already know exactly how the eyes and the lips are gonna work, and I just start developing around that. So in the future, I'd really like to experiment more with glazing techniques. I have done raku fires before, but never a soda firing process or a pit fire process. I'm gearing more towards the outside or the final product of the piece rather than the building of the structure itself. In the future, I'd like to expand my studio. If I had an extruder, it would allow me to build more of these larger pieces like the woman behind me. And if I had a kiln, it would allow me to fire at home rather than taking my pieces to a public kiln, which has a pretty large risk because, for one, you're putting your pieces in a kiln with other people's work. If they have air bubbles in their work or any structural, if their structure lacks integrity, it could potentially explode and affect my pieces. And so if I had my own kiln, I would be able to control my own environment and not rely on other artists using proper techniques. So I think being an artist is incredibly important because art ties hand in hand with mental health. And if I have an emotional reaction over a level 6 and I get in front of a wheel, it just melts my stress right away. I think it's really important in the age we're in right now. We all have been separated and isolated because of COVID, and I think that art gives people a reason to think, it gives people a reason to talk, it gives them a reason to have community and to collaborate, and I think it's just such a huge and big important part of our communities.